back for back, and a touch of calves as well. I need some calf stimulation every so often. I'm lucky enough that calves are not too far behind in terms of my lower body development, but I want my calves to be a touch freakier. Like, I want to get them, yeah. I want calves to be to the level where when I'm walking around in shorts, they're really fucking just jumping out at you. And unfortunately for most of us, you know, regardless of how comfortable it may be to believe that we live in a world where your calves will just grow on their own, probably not. More than likely not. So throw your 6 or 5 or whatever amount of sets of calf raises at the end of your workout every time that your calves aren't sore, and you will not regret it. For a long time, I've kind of been into daily calf work to the point where I would finish every lift with like 5 or 6 sets of calves, and I mean, I can't speak against it. You know, that's kind of how I used to do it for fucking a couple years. Now I guess they're at a point where I'm not too upset with them, so I guess I've been slacking off. But no, if I had to give a general rule for most body parts, you know, when you train them in a kind of a progressive overload sort of style, like we're going to do with back, or, you know, what you do with legs and squats, and for those, I'd say you should hit everything about twice a week, or, you know, you should hit one muscle group and then not hit it for at least, 3-4 days ish, or 2-3 days, something like that. But calves are special, you know, calves are special. And as much as you believe it to be bro science from the 80s, guess what, man? You know, these fucking, what would we call them? Essentially the Knights of the Round Table in terms of muscle building. You know, I'm talking OG characters. They know what they're talking about, you know? So when you hear a Sean Ray and, you know, guys among that era talk about how, you know, calves are a stubborn muscle and you got to hit them more frequently than everything else, they didn't just pull that idea out of their fucking buttocks, man. You know, these are guys who seriously gave a shit about growing muscles, so they're gonna find every way to fucking do it possible. So about what I'm trying to say is calves can handle some frequent fucking work, because you gotta remember, I mean, your fucking calves are holding up your entire body weight constantly all fucking day without getting tired, or at least not so tired that you can't just keep walking. You know, the limiting factor of how far you can walk in a day is not your fucking calves, you know, giving out and becoming exhausted. It's just your whole body's level of exhaustion. So I don't think it's a bad idea to hit them much more frequently than everything else, to the point where if you do calves one day, you get a good calf pump and you hit them hard, and the next day when you go to the gym again, if they're not sore, I say do it again. I've kind of just been doing them every so often, but no, I gotta make sure I get them in at least a couple times a week. Actually practice what I preach with do them every time they're not sore. But that's mostly, you know, that's mostly something that the guys who have calves that are not as big as they want them to be should be listening to. If your calves are big enough, yippee, good for you. You can kind of chill out. You don't have to camp out on the seat of calf raise for 6 sets of single leg squeezing reps at the end of your workouts. But yeah, I don't think it's ever a bad idea to do a couple sets of calves. But actually getting more into the main part of the workout, back is back, man. It's not too complicated. I can foresee, you know, I'm fucking using future vision here. There's gonna be some rows, possibly some hammer strength machine rows. There's gonna be some pull downs. There's gonna be some pullovers. There may be some other machine rows. And at the end of all of that, I can definitely see very clearly in my mind that there's gonna be a pretty good fucking back pump. When it comes to back training, I think you're fucking, you know, let's just say you can navigate at your fucking discretion, because it's kind of hard to go wrong. Even if I was, like, if I had a fucking dice, like a 20-sided dice with, and every side of it was different. Like one side could say like heavy lat pull downs, a weight where you fail around 10 reps. And another side could say light pull downs, fail at 20 reps and squeeze each one for 1 second at the bottom. Or, do heavy rows here, or heavy pullovers here, or light pullovers here. If anybody makes a legit product like that, I'd like a shout out. That actually sounds kind of funny. But no, if I had a fucking dice or like a magic 8-ball that had a different back movement and basic style of the set, like row movement, light, heavy, squeezing, drop set. If I came into the gym today and I just rolled that every time I wanted to do a new set, and it had me do a completely crazy back day, I think that'd be fucking fine, man. I'd still hit my whole back, and I'd probably finish with a really good back pump. So that's not necessarily what I want to do all the time. I do like to do a couple sets of really lat focused stuff in a row, and then maybe move on to a couple sets of all rowing movements in a row. So sometimes I like to group up the back training like that. Like maybe do all lat focused pull down, pull over stuff in the beginning of the workout, and then finish with more rowing based stuff, or start with rows, finish with pull downs. I mean, it's any kind of mix in between, as long as you're really going hard. I've never known it's a problem. Now for me though, back has always been a kind of an advanced body part. I'm reaching the point now where I'm getting pretty evenly, let's just say evenly muscled across my whole build. But for a while, like a year and a half ago-ish, I skipped back training for like 6 months. Just because, or maybe not 6 months, it was at least 4 months. Just because my back was really taking over compared to, my chest and arms. And it still does a little, but not to the same degree that it did before, so that could just be me having kind of advanced back genetics or whatever else. That's one last point before we get started, is make sure that you take that into account when you're listening to people for specific kinds of training advice and tips, or if you're watching videos of like I'm trying to think of somebody now, like let's think of a Tom Platz. I think he trained his legs like a fucking demon. I think he squatted like an absolute freak, and he was pushing it to the limit, at least based on all the training clips I've seen. I wasn't there, but I'm inclined to believe it. We've all seen the sets. But he also has fucking beastly quad genetics. So, not that I think he says anything wrong, but you do kind of have to take into account the fact that there are other things at play when it comes to people's results like that. If somebody has fucking an insane chest relative to the rest of their build, and you're like, oh my god, dude, holy shit, your chest is fucking huge. It's way ahead of your back and your arms and your shoulders. How did you do it? And, they're going to tell you like, oh, well, I do some heavy bench, I do some cable flies, I do some of this, and that's pretty much it. That's not necessarily something that's going to apply directly to you. So that's where I think the guys who really manage to kind of navigate their way through different routines and different approaches to their own training, I think the guys who can actually kind of use trial and error with their own routines, find out what actually works for them and what doesn't, and then make adjustments from there. I think those guys really have a better understanding. So that's where listen to what people say in videos and how people listen to people's different kind of training styles and put it into your inventory of information about lifting. But you have to kind of use that information, kind of analyze it, try it out for yourself, and then see what you can actually apply effectively to your own shit. So let's just get our biceps, forearms, back a little bit warmed up, and then jump to the first working set. All right. If you know anybody who loves kind of just showing off the amount of plates that they're doing on this particular hammer strength machine, try to just challenge them and say, because more than likely, anytime anybody like maxes out this machine and it's well beyond their means, they're going to hold this highest handle up here. And I don't know if you know about leverages, but that's easy mode. That's where you've got the most fucking torque, and you don't have to actually feel as much weight. right? Have them try to use this lower handle. I'm not sure the actual percentage, but it's at least 15-20% heavier if you're holding down here. So I think I'm going to start with this. And there's a little more to the story though, because now that I'm going to have this kind of lower grip, I'm going to feel much more lats in this row. So I think I'm going to kind of make use of this situation perfectly without having to change weight. So probably a set or two, really lower lat focused on this lower handle, because you got to remember I'm kind of pulling down here, right? A little more like kind of dumbbell rowish. And once I get weak enough where I don't really think I can do the same weight anymore, I'll just switch to this upper, easier handle and feel a little more mid-trap. So kind of doing two movements on one machine. It's never going to hurt you to kind of optimize your routine like this. I'd hate to have to keep throwing and adding plates. Come on. It's just a physical waste of energy. I think I gotta switch to the easy handle for the next set. Good start though. Okay. Okay. All right. I think a double arm set next. Drop a plate, then move on. Okay. No. Okay. Oh my goodness. I think that's enough for this machine. I haven't been doing it as often because it's a little Well, I don't know. Double arm I like, single arm. Sometimes it's kind of hard to keep my balance and stay level, but perfect 3 opening sets. Let's move on to something else. Some single arm pull down slash rows should be perfect. I couldn't find a metal D handle, but the V bar is just a D handle with 2 handles. So just strap one side on, you're good. Oh, wait, no. Left side first. Whoops. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. 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 Whoa. Yeah. Okay. One more. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's do some machine pull downs. I like that combination. Controlled, slow squeezing rep. And then once I reach a level of fatigue, then burn out with some quicker, nasty ones. Oh, man. It really is kind of a mullet approach. Business in the front and then party in the back. But this machine is cool. I wish that the bar height was like an extra 6 inches higher, but very wide grip. I'm going to hold it way on the outside over here. Not a super strong grip, but it's not that much weight. And I'm really going to try to squeeze. Like the key that I'm kind of thinking of in my mind is I want to feel my shoulder blades pinch each other at the bottom. Or if you can't really feel that, feel like you're trying to pull your elbows together behind your back. Let's take a second to do a rest pause. Okay. Let's take a second. Let's do some pullovers. So I'll explain. Typically, when I hear pullovers, it's usually like rope handle right here, both arms at once, which I don't like. I don't hate. It works, but for me, I find I can really squeeze my lats at the bottom way harder when I just hold on to the handle itself. Or I guess if you had one of the ropes where it's just like one side of it and then you hold the bottom. But something about this, it's a good stretch, but like I don't really get that same squeeze as I do when I just hold one side, turn away a little, and try to. I've said this sort of cue a few times. I'm holding on to a big ass fucking sword and I'm trying to sheath it right into my hip. That's kind of the, if I had to describe it in kind of a silly way, that's what I'm thinking. But 5 reps on the left side, 5 on the right, back and forth, back and forth. And then I'll finish with some kind of something, probably a super set of rows and pull downs, just to completely pump my back up. Then we go pose down. Yeah. 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 Oh my. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do the finisher and then bust out some lat spreads. All right. The plan now is a two-parter. So pre-exhaust with pull-ups, get a batch failure-ish, immediately jump down, and then burn out some reps on that seated row machine. I usually like finishing back day off with a superset of pull downs, pullovers, and then moving to rows. Because it really just lets me finish off with a complete back pump. So let's burn some of these out. Boy. Oh, it is much easier to do pull-ups when I'm a little lighter. Oh my god. All right, come on. Okay. Okay. Back complete. Be nice and in fucking focus. So let's see how the back pump looks purely through the shirt, which I have reason to believe should be pretty fucking wide, even without you know, any of the fancy veins in view. Oh yeah, as fucking expected. So yeah, definitely ended up being more of a rowing in the beginning of lift, you know, kind of to start with, and then transitioning more so into pull downs as the lift progressed. But, you know, no matter what the order ends up being, the pump's going to be there at the end as long as your sets were actually hard. Because even when you're doing rowing, you're working your lats. And even in pull downs, you know, when you get down to this kind of bottom part and you're really squeezing, I mean, you are getting some lower traps, at least just a touch. So let's see how some classics look. Actually, I might even scoot forward a touch. A little better lighting. Yeah, perfect. Oh, oh. Definitely starting to see some separation from shoulder to tricep. Because even though there's not a lot, just this little bit of kind of fat, you know, underneath my skin in between these two little cuts, as that shrinks down, this should get fucking just sharper and sharper and sharper until my shoulders look like they're just fucking, you know, shoulder pads basically. So let's see it from the back too. Oh, all right. Oh, I actually want to get another fucking double Y. Oh my goodness. So, visual confirmation as solid as back pump has been achieved. So, I'm going to go back up there, just hang out on the seated calf machine for a couple of sets worth, get a calf pump, and we can go home and eat. I'm hungry, but I'm also thirsty. I was not hitting the water fountain enough this lift, but let's get back in there. All right, back complete. All I did was sit on the calf machine for a couple sets, get a solid calf pump, and then skedaddle. Not really much to see, so I just packed up the camera first. I'm out of gas, but I know for a fact I can make it to the gas station, so not stressing one little bit, which is a solid state of being, you know. So what was I was about to say something. Now I forget. What was I about to say? Back fully pumped. Oh yeah, no, I was gonna talk about the food. Yeah, so plan now. I'm gonna really lock in for these next 3-ish weeks of trying to trim down. Not that I haven't already, but you know, the nature of dieting is you know, with all sorts of training aspects, you got to progressively overload it. So if you want to keep losing body fat at a steady rate, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to decrease your calorie intake over time. There's not really any way to get around it. So I'm gonna keep it at just around 2,500-ish. I've been floating around 3,000, so a little 2,500 drop for the next couple weeks should be perfect. And then I will be, I mean, I already feel perfectly primed to start a bulk. I just want to get a touch more body fat off of me. And I'm not like, you gotta remember, I'm not in a crazy rush, you know. I don't want to, because if you start, well, let me put it this way: if you kind of transition from bulking or cutting too soon in the process of it, then you won't even get the full fucking benefits, man. You know, it's like when you're doing suicides in gym class. You know, you're not getting that full run if you don't actually get yourself all the way to the other side, touch the line, and then run back. And what I mean by that is, if you don't really stick to a dieting phase and you don't seriously take yourself to a considerably lower body fat percentage, then, you know, for one thing, you will have kind of just spent a couple of months doing like nothing, because you didn't really lose as much fat as you actually wanted to, and you probably knew that you wanted to. Plus, you didn't even spend that time gaining any muscle either. So, in my mind, I know that when I start dieting down and I'm in my dieting phase, I'm not building muscle. I'm maintaining size, I'm maintaining my strength, and I'm trying to take off body fat. That's kind of the primary goal. But, you know, I know that I'm not building any muscle during this period. So, I want to really fucking, you know, lock in, try not to fucking have any cheat days or go too crazy on the ice cream late at night before I go to bed. Because if I don't really push it and take my body fat down a considerable, at least, you know, a couple points on the body fat percentage range, then, you know, my look isn't going to change. And by the time I start bulking again, I'm not really in a good start, you know? Like, let me think about it. How can I kind of describe it? It's almost like somebody just asked me today, like, you know, saying, what should I do? Should I bulk up or should I cut down right now? And, you know, kind of an arbitrary question, but I asked him, I'm like, so, well, what have you kind of been leaning towards over the last few months? And he says, you know, I feel like I'm cutting more often than bulking. So I just said, all right, start bulking up, man. Hit it. You got to pick one or the other. So if you're on the needle, you know, if you're kind of teetering back and forth, fuck, man, just flip a dice or flip a coin. And more than likely, once you flip it, you know, if you've got two options that you're kind of hemming and hawing about, if you flip a coin, once that coin starts spinning in the air and you say heads is this, tails is this, in your mind it's going to pop up what you're really hoping for. But no matter what, you got to just pick something. And whichever one you pick, put all your fucking chips on that side, man. Because if you actually stick to it and do a proper bulk, then you will have gained some fucking muscle mass. But you will also have gained some body fat, which is where the flip side comes into play. After you finish the proper bulk, then, you know, lock yourself in, you know, toughen up, get your calorie deficit going, peel off some of that body fat, and try to maintain as much muscle as you built as possible. That's sort of how I see it. So, I've kind of heard this argument against, because, you know, I'm constantly bulking up and down, and it's like, well, Sam, what's the point of bulking if you're just going to cut down later? Why not just stay lean the whole time? Which is, it's a valid argument, like that would make sense, but you're missing the point that every time I bulk up, I mean, literally every time I bulked up over the last like 4 times, I have reached a heavier weight than I had beforehand. Same thing with every time I diet down. I was heavier than I was last time, right? So this is kind of how the bulking, cutting approach has been working for me. You know, 230 was a peak weight at one point, bulked, and then I trimmed down, I was about 210. And then 240 was peak bulk, like that was really pushing it for me, and then I cut down 220. 250, 2 bulks ago, I was really trying to force food down, and then trimmed down to about 230-ish. So now, this past bulk, I managed to hit 260, and that bulk wasn't even completely over. It kind of got a little bit off-railed at the end because of a lot of the traveling we were doing for the Arnold and stuff, it kind of messed me up. But that was already near the end of the bulk. And then now, trim it down, 240, probably more like upper 230s, is going to be the peak dieted weight. So even though it is a back and forth, the overall trajectory trend line is fucking positive. And, I hate to, well, I don't hate to say it, I'd like to say it, but if instead of really locking in on a bulk and locking in on a cut and kind of doing this like up and down, if you just kind of barely bulk and you're not even really hitting your calorie goals, and then you barely cut down, like you're in a deficit maybe like 3 days a week, and the other days you just say screw it and then you eat like normal. Instead of this nice linear, at least, state of progress in each situation, you're just gonna fucking look like this, man. And let's say up here is the goal, this little area, this corner, and you're starting down here. If you lock into a bulk, cut, bulk, cut, bulk, cut, bulk, cut, if bulking and cutting is the approach you want to take, then actually committing to each states of being will let you do better, because if you don't really lock in and you're not really bulking and you're not really cutting every time you try to go back and forth, you're not gonna make any progress. All you're gonna do is, like that one guy, like what that comment would say, is just barely move up and down and not really, make any gains in the process, So if you've been lifting for, like, this is kind of, these are the big three. It's, should I main gain, should I cut, or should I bulk? Those are pretty much the three states of the, the modern lifter. Now, which one should you do? It depends on how long you've been working out for. I think the beginner has no need to do an insane bulk where you're actually trying to eat as much fucking food as possible in the long run. It's newbie gains combined with eating a solid amount of protein as well as much food as you're hungry for. You are going to be able to main gain pretty well. I mean, I main gained all the way to fucking 200 pounds. So I think main gaining is legit. Do not think otherwise just because I'm always talking about bulking and cutting now. But it does, there's no chance that you're not going to plateau. You're going to reach a point where, your gains are going to be, let's say, marginal at best in terms of a main gaining approach. And, once your gains have slowed down and you're not really progressing too much anymore from kind of taking a main gaining approach, then that's where I say, fuck, man, start chowing down. Don't be afraid to put on some body fat in a bulk. But, this part's also important. Don't get too fat either. If you're the character who's about to start a bulk, right now you're a basic body fat percentage, let's say 15, you've kind of got some abs, you're just kind of a regular looking character. Maybe don't bulk to 40% body fat. Don't fall for the perma bulk trap. Like, as much as I talk about sweets and how you got to eat whatever you have to eat to gain weight, if you're the character who puts on weight very easily and you're kind of prone to a lot of body fat gain, then you need to be a little more careful about bulking. When I talk about bulking and, having just like fucking milkshakes and ice cream and whatever else, I don't think it's a terrible move. But if you're eating so much that you're just really putting on a lot of body fat, then what that means is all this, kind of simple sugars, fats, proteins that you're taking in, it's above the threshold that you can actually use effectively, So I think kind of leaning towards the term leaner bulk is probably a little bit better of a way to describe it. And I don't mean lean like keep your abs. I just mean, don't put yourself in the obese range of the BMI chart. Not that I think that chart is like fucking totally accurate, but you get what I'm saying, So just one little more side note before I get back to what I was saying. So if you're, I can't think of a lifter. Let's say you're 180 pound semi-lean dude. You've been main gaining for like 3 years. You think you want to actually start a legit bulk, and you can't seem to gain any weight, then I see no problem having some more calorie dense meals. As far as I'm concerned, if I look at a plate of a pound of, or more like 3/4 pound ribeye, bowl of rice, or like instant rice, or like 2 packs of ramen, a big ass liter or two of water, and then, have like an ice cream sandwich or two after. As long as you're not packing on too much body fat, I think it's all right. As much as controversial as that might sound, but I'll talk much more about bulking once I'm bulking. I do have some things in mind. I do have some key aspects that I want to change this bulk compared to previous ones, which I'm sure any seasoned bodybuilders will definitely, what's the word I'm thinking of here? Will definitely be a little bit happier to hear from me. I'm talking consistent meal timing. I'm talking keeping a rice cooker full at all times. I'm still gonna have treats, but this is gonna be the most regimented bulk that I have ever done. And I'm super excited for it because I know that it's gonna be the heaviest I've ever been, but considering the fact that I can really now put a ton of time and energy into it, I've got no excuse to become a total freak in the next, 8 or 9 months. And even thinking about it, it's getting me excited. So I'm going to try to push those thoughts of tubs of Ben and Jerry's back deep into my mind. Get excited for, a salad with just salt, pepper, and vinegar next to some ground beef with some fat-free cheese. But don't worry, that inferno, that blazing fire, which is my desire to bulk up and pack on lean tissue, it's still there. It's still in there, but I just need to keep it away from me just for a few more weeks. So, cardio in the morning, arms tomorrow. Let's just keep shredding down before I start fattening myself up. So I'll see you then.